Hello and welcome to Sticking to Basics, a beginning drum instructional video series provided by HowDoIPlayThat.com. I'm Tim Crispin and I'll be your instructor. Now whether you've been playing the drums for 10 months or 10 minutes, this 5-video series will give you the tools necessary to have you sounding great in the least amount of time possible. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's also going to be a lot of effort on your part because regardless of what instrument you learn to play, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. Now, in this 5-video series, I'll break the basics of drumming down using my 5T approach. We're going to cover technique, timing, tuning, texture, and taste. In today's video, we're going to be covering technique. Learning to use the proper technique to play an instrument will help you speed up the learning process, build good habits that make it easier for you to play, and ensure a lifetime of musical enjoyment. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started today by covering grip, posture, rudiments, and drum setup. Let's start today by talking about grip. Now when I say the word grip, I'm referring to the proper way to hold a pair of drumsticks. If you don't know how to hold the drumsticks right, it's going to be very difficult for you to play the drums. So there are two main ways to grip the drumsticks. There's first the matched grip, which both hands are basically the same, and then there's traditional grip. Now this method is particularly noticeable when you watch marching bands or jazz bands. But what we're going to talk about in today's video is matched grip because it's the most commonly used grip for today's modern music. Now the main way to hold it with your fingers is to put your hands out like you're going to shake someone's hand. Place the drumstick in the crevice of your first finger and then place your thumb around it so that you're basically holding the drumstick with these two fingers, your thumb and index finger. Then the other fingers just come and wrap over the end of it, and you can see about how high I am on the drumstick. We're just talking about to where your hand would be leaving just a little bit of length at the bottom of the drumstick. So the two fingers are gripping the stick, the other fingers are there just to tuck the drumstick in to your hand. And right here I've probably got it just a little bit too low, so I'm going to allow myself a little bit more room with the stick on the bottom. And as you're playing, then the stick becomes like a seesaw. It's like a fulcrum. Basically your thumb and index finger are going to bounce the stick back and forth, just like this. You can actually practice this. Here's going to be the best method for practicing it, by using your index finger and your thumb, just like I'm doing, and practicing going back and forth this way to make sure that you've got good control between your thumb and index finger and that you're not going to drop the stick. You need to be able to hold on to the stick securely with your thumb and index finger. So if you see someone playing with their index finger out, or maybe you're guilty of it as well, you need to realize that you're not going to be able to properly move the stick with your fingers if your index finger is out here blocking it. Remember this when we're talking about grip. Your index finger and thumb are the two fingers that grip the sticks at all times. There's never a point in your drumming where you should ever let go with these two fingers. Then you use the other fingers to tuck it in. Now, how do you position your arm when holding the drumstick? That's the next question. Now with a matched grip, what the concept is to let the stick become an extension of your hand. It should not be sticking to the side like this. Okay? It shouldn't be in some other direction, maybe like this, where my wrist is bent. I want to hold my arm straight, and the drumstick should line up with my arm. So if the stick is not lining up quite straight with your arm, you need to situate it using your index finger and thumb to where the drumstick lines up with your arm. And then, think about this. You want to be able to move your wrist up and down just like you're painting a fence, just like you're painting a wall. Your wrist would actually be bending this way. Now I'm over-exaggerating, I'm definitely moving too much, but I want you to see the motion that the stick is going to move straight up and down, and your wrist is going to be doing the bending. When you play the drums, I know that you probably have seen a lot of videos with drummers playing where their hands are moving all over the place, and of course if they have huge drum sets and you've got cymbals over here, you've got all kinds of percussion instruments to the side, then of course you would have to move your arms around to get to those instruments. But what you're going to want to do is leaving the stick as an extension of your arm. You want to keep the back of your hand on top at all times because your wrist is going to naturally bend this way. Plus, it allows you to have some snap. You should be able to actually hear the snap when you're playing. And this snapping motion actually allows you to get some force in your hit without having to use your whole arms. So in other words, you don't want to be using your elbows and arms to play. You don't play this way, you're going to play using fingers and wrist. Do you see the difference in the motion? Not like a hammer driving in a nail, but more with fingers and wrist. And right here, I'm predominantly just using fingers. So with grip, remember these things. You want to keep the back of your hand on top, and you want to practice snapping the stick into the palm of your hand. So you could actually just do this exercise as well. So we've already got two exercises. The first exercise, holding the stick with your thumb and index finger, and just practicing moving that around. It doesn't matter which way you move it. Just practice kind of building some strength between those two fingers. And then now we want to grip the stick just like this, have it as an extension of our arm, and then practice snapping it in, moving the stick up and down in a straight motion as best as possible. And of course you would practice that with both hands as well. Straight up and down.